Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's Snowmageddon 2024 here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Conditions, not ideal to play disc golf, but I figured I'd take advantage of this time off and share with you guys the 3 things that I've learned fairly recently that I really wish that I had prioritized at the start of my game. So if you're new to the sport or you're just wanting to learn some more stuff this off season, I think at least one of these tips might help you guys out. Let's get right into it. So the first thing that I want to say is, you guys know I'm not a form coach and my form is nowhere near perfect, but I do enjoy sharing my journey with you guys. Quite frankly, I'm kind of embarrassed that I just seem to have completely missed this tip. And it's not even really a tip, it's just good form. So the first thing we're going to talk about is bracing. I essentially had no brace whatsoever. I'd say that comes from me having an athletic background, and I watched enough tips and tutorials on YouTube and kind of just went out and had fun, which there's nothing wrong with going out and having fun, but I completely missed the concept of the brace. Now, what is the brace? The brace is essentially when you are stopping your momentum, whether you're doing a small little X step or a fast run up with an X step, you have to stop all of your momentum in order to inject power into the disc. Y'all, it's the simplest concept. It's super simple, and it makes tons of sense that you have to stop all of your momentum to inject power into the disc, but I simply wasn't doing it. And I have a couple of theories as to why I was not doing this. Coming from an athletic background, I was comfortable throwing footballs, basketballs, baseballs, skipping rocks growing up as a kid, and all of that stuff has something in common. To throw far and throw well, you brace. Here's the issue that I think I was running into. Let's say that I was throwing a snowball. That's East Tennessee snow right there. It's not going to work. Oh, I should not have done that. That was cold. That was cold. If you're going to be throwing a ball as a right-handed person, and you're throwing the ball with your right hand, then your left foot is going to plant, and then you are going to throw that ball. It's that simple. You learn this as a kid in sports. Being athletic, you just learn that as you throw, you stop and you throw. And all of your momentum stops with that front leg. So the issue with that is that as a right-handed player playing disc golf, you aren't bracing with your left leg unless you're throwing a forehand. When you're throwing backhand, you're bracing with your right leg. Essentially, that means that your lower body is having to learn the complete opposite movement that you've learned your entire life. That you have to brace with your opposite leg, that all of that momentum has to stop. And I think that really caught me up because my brace was non-existent. If you go look at some of my old videos, you'll see all of my power is getting leaked because I was not bracing on this leg, I was leaning into my throws, and I was letting all of my momentum carry out over this leg as I threw. Now granted, I was able to have fun and throw that way and I didn't get injured, but I did hit a plateau and I wanted to move past it. And it wasn't until recently I learned, wow, I have zero brace whatsoever. So practically, what does this look like? For me, it meant slowing down my run-up. When I slowed down my run-up but actually focused on my brace, focused on shifting my weight from my back leg into my front and throwing, I found that I could throw my max distance lines that I was throwing previously by taking tiny little baby steps. That's it. You don't need a super fast run up to throw far. However, what I learned is that it was much lower effort. I was not having to run into that throw. I was not having to yank my arm. I was just letting my body do the work. The big takeaway from this is you should only run up as fast as you can stop your momentum. Start small and then work your way up and get that brace feeling comfortable because we have to be able to stop to put all of our power into the disc. So tip number 2 is going to be learn how to aim with your feet. And this is how we're going to do that. So again, we're not super focusing on throwing right now. You can do this drill in your living room, anywhere that you want. Put some tape down on the carpet, find a parking lot, find a nice line somewhere. And what's worked for me is I like to take my first step and I'm going to cross the line. Starting my X step, I'm going to come slightly behind or sometimes in line with this foot, but we kind of want to be moving along this line. The last step is the most important because we need to get that toe down so that our hips can rotate. We want our hips to move so that when we drop our heel, we can start to throw with our hips, moving our weight forwards with our hips, moving into that brace. And when I do this properly, for me, my heel of my front foot is going to be in line with my toe. And once that foot is planted, then I start my throw. I think this is something you can work on super, super slow. And like for me right now, we've kind of been snowed in. So like I can work on these drills in the house. It just keeps me from going crazy. But aiming with your feet is so important because when you get your timing right and get your release right, which I know are crazy variables, but when you learn how to be consistent with your feet, you will start releasing on very accurate lines. This tip will really help you guys make progress in the woods. It will help you make progress in all facets of your game. So tip number 2, guys, is learn how to aim with your feet, get your footwork dialed in, and get that working with your brace. These two things go hand in hand. And so I really wish that when I had first started that I had prioritized these things. Disc golf is supposed to be fun first and foremost. And so go out, have fun throwing. But when you want to start to gain more consistency and work on your form, if you're not bracing, learn how to brace. Maybe it's time for you to check your footwork and see how it's actually doing. So how do we actually check our footwork? Get yourself a camera, set it up, and go throw. So first and foremost, we need to learn how to brace. Second, we need to focus on our feet when it comes to aiming and releasing the disc. It's not even really snow here anymore. It's just like ice. Like you can hear me just crunching through that top layer. Super fun. I will say that the thing that has helped me implement all of these tools the most recently has been, I went to Walmart and I bought like the cheapest net that they have, just like a baseball pitching net. And guys, it's really helped me learn how to feel my throw. You're not focused on where the disc is going. You're not focused on what the flight pattern looks like. You can really dial in your footwork, dial in your brace, and really feel the differences that happen when you make those form changes. I can't really explain it any differently than that. I thought that nets might have been kind of gimmicky, but now that I've used one for a couple of weeks, go buy a net if you want to make progress. It's just the difference between feeling the power coming out of the disc. You can put a lot more attention into the intricate details of your throw, and it just helps you hone in your game and then eventually translate that out into the field and then out into your game. So I highly recommend buying a net and filming yourself, because your brain is going to tell you that you're making form changes, and then you're going to film yourself trying them and realize, oh yeah, I'm not making those changes at all. But I can't stress enough how just buying a net recently really helped me implement these changes that we're talking about. Wow, look at this. Somebody cleared off this tee pad. How kind of them. It was me. So the last thing that I want to talk about is something that I just assumed I was doing right. And I assumed I was doing it right because it's so selective. It's very person-to-person based. Everyone has a different way that they like to do it. And we're going to be talking about the grip and how you hold the disc. So I think grip is something that people take for granted, because I just started playing and I was like, oh, this is comfortable for me. This is how I'm going to hold the disc. But I do think that even though there are differences between person and person on how you hold the disc, there may be right and wrong ways to hold a disc. I released a video a little while back that was a tip I learned from Robbie C's channel, where you essentially just grip the disc as hard as you can and you were trying to hold on to it. You were trying to see if you could keep it in your hand, and the goal of that was to give you a grip lock or the feeling of a grip lock so that the disc was ripping out of your hands and you felt it rip out of your hands for the first time. Now, I started trying to throw pretty much every throw like that, especially max distance, and what I learned is that requires a lot of your muscles to be tense, And while we do need to have an active throw, I think that you could be more prone to injury by doing that. So really what I found out about that drill was, for me personally, it was more of a teaching tool that taught me this extreme, this is kind of what it's supposed to feel like, but how do we achieve that without ripping the disc as hard as we can? I think that video, if you've watched it or seen any of that, I think that's a really good starting place if you're struggling with feeling snap, but I don't think that that's the way you need to throw 100% of the time, because I think that it can injure you, and it's just more work. It's just more work. It's another thing you got to add into your throw. So the change that I made recently was I used to keep my disc really high up in my hand. I used to hold it so that, I don't really know how to show you guys this, but the flight plate is kind of up here, almost, it's touching the bottom of my thumb essentially. It's under it. And I watched a video of the Disc Golf Spin Doctor. Really great channel, love watching his content. And he essentially said, hey, hold your disc and then take your thumb off of the top. When I did that, my disc fell out of my hand. This was kind of revolutionary to me. I was like, okay, maybe this guy's onto something. Like, I should experiment with this and check it out. So what he said is, instead of keeping it up high in your hand, the disc kind of needs to sit so that you can grip it with your fingers, but you need to be able to take your thumb off of the disc. So I don't know if you can see the difference between me holding, this is a fairway driver, just like this, and I'm kind of resting the blade in my hand. I can actually just take my thumb on and off at will, but I can press down to give me more pressure on the disc, but I'm just holding it right there. Whereas with it being higher up in my hand, I can't do that. It literally slides out. So naturally I went to my net and I started messing around with this new grip, just holding the disc there and then letting it rip. And what I found was that I was consistently getting that feeling of snap, that feeling of the disc absolutely ripping out of my hand pretty much every throw. It was like a miracle for me. It was like a whole fix overnight, was just changing the way I was holding the disc. I've been doing this wrong for, you know, almost 2 years now. I've been holding the disc in a way that was comfortable to me, but it wasn't giving me as much power. And I do have some theories on why that was not giving me as much power. So what I believe was happening is, if you look at your hand and think of your fingers to your palm as a lever, when the disc sits higher up in your palm, the way I was holding it, I was using more of my fingers, like my fingers are kind of bending at my palm. And if you guys know anything about leverage, the longer this is here, the more power you have to open it. So you can apply more pressure, like I think of like a big old like breaker bar or a torque wrench, you know? But kind of the opposite is true too, is that it takes less force essentially put on top of this to open this up. And so that's what was causing me to have those feelings of, maybe I'm just opening my hand on release. I don't think I was. I think I was throwing the disc hard enough that it was causing my hand, when it was like up in my palm like this, I think I was throwing with enough force that as the disc came out, I was using more of that lever, and it felt like I was just opening my hand, and I wasn't really getting snap. So what changes with that when I switch to this other grip? Well, now, I don't know if you guys can see, but look at my lever. So instead of using my entire finger connected to my palms, I'm kind of just using those first knuckles. So now we've essentially got like that. That is what's holding onto the disc, not this, you know, not more of this, because the more leverage we're putting into there, the harder it's going to be to kind of keep a hold of that disc. So letting it sink lower into my fingers actually let me hold onto the disc longer with less effort, and I was getting that snap off of my fingers. And this is one of the main tips I wanted to share with you guys, is if maybe you think you're keeping your disc up really high in your palm, like try that, like hold it, and then like, yes, I can put the disc up as high as I used to throw it, and I can kind of keep it there, but it's uncomfortable and it's hard. Whereas when I keep it lower, that's effortless right there. That's just absolutely effortless. That one grip change essentially gave me more consistent snap and more consistent feel out of my hand. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. I can't believe that I just needed to make this one simple change after all this time of feeling like I had plateaued, and now I'm consistently getting more RPMs onto the disc, watching it stay in the air longer, and getting more snap. It blows my mind. So really kind of the takeaway for this whole video is, like, if you feel like you've plateaued in any way, we've still got some time left in the off season. Like, maybe film yourself, get a net, look at your form, make some adjustments, and don't be afraid to look at the things that feel comfortable, because it might just be the things that feel comfortable that you need to adjust. So that's kind of what I have for you guys today. There's a lot of things that I didn't cover. You know, there are so many different little intricacies to the backhand throw. But hopefully in future videos we can talk about those more. But I hope these tips were helpful for you guys. Learn how to brace, learn how to aim with your feet, and if you think your grip needs to be changed, go ahead and try it. If anything feels comfortable, maybe just try and make a little change. See what happens. I do highly encourage you guys, go buy a net, film yourself throwing when you're trying to make changes so that you can see if you're actually implementing them or not, and really focus on the feel of your throw. How powerful does it feel? Because when you go to a field or you're in a casual round or even a tournament round, like, you can't really think about those things, and I feel like more often than not we're focused on the flight of the disc instead of the feel. So I hope these tips were helpful for you guys. I'm freezing. I'm gonna go inside because I can't feel my fingers anymore. Until next time, have fun, get better, stay decent.